Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Wednesday edition of the New Mexico Rising podcast. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all those things. We appreciate it. Tonight's going to be a little different. Dad, hop in here for a minute. Let's kind
Good
of
evening, Hunwinsman. How are we doing, sir?
another day in paradise. I mean, it's been a busy day in
Yeah,
New
it has been.
Mexico.
Yeah, so our guest for this evening will be coming on here shortly. Brought some stuff to our attention, because we are dealing with a little bit of a row here when it comes to not only our public institutions instituting vaccine mandates, but also from the education side of the house, school boards or school districts implementing these mask mandates on these kids. And also, I suspect there's some soft, I don't know, coercion about getting vaccinated, particularly now that we hear that there's a fast track for at least the Pfizer vaccine here toward the middle of September for full FDA approval. This is kind of opening up a bunch of cans of worms because we have seen now that the PED, or our public education department, seems to wield some, I don't know, enormous amount of power
Yeah,
over the subsidiarity. Sorry, my public school education is failing me.
that's okay.
When it comes to
Word
the
by word.
or the composition of our school boards, particularly if school boards decide to nah, we're not going to do this mask mandate. Case in point, what is this place again? I as someone who is not New
Floyd.
Mexican enough, Floyd, New Mexico.
It's in Roosevelt County.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that county would explain a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were just summarily suspended, or what's the word? Same thing happened down here, right? Down
Yeah,
here
I
in
mean
Los
there was a
Lunas.
lot of threats going forward. Obviously, the school board wasn't playing along
Yeah.
with what the governor in the state said. But let's just slam right into this. Let's get our guest on here and not have her sitting back there waiting for the whole show.
I'm pretty sure.
Elisa, thanks for joining us.
Guys, how are you?
Oh, it's another day in paradise. So what is your take on this? I mean, this situation in Floyd kind of jumped out of nowhere today. It was my understanding that there was supposed to be sort of a delay, and then the education department just said, nope, we're doing it now, and they got rid of everybody. What's your immediate take on that?
Well, I think it's a tremendous overreach on the part of government. You know, these are duly. For the record, let's kind of set this up. So, essentially, I believe it was this week, and I'm just going to adjust my camera here. Okay. I believe it was this week or late last week. The governor's public education department set the ground rules for the upcoming school year in New Mexico and declared that unlike 43 other states that do not have a mask mandate for school-age children, that New Mexico would be implementing a mask mandate for school-age children. Again, despite the science and despite the near they're the lowest risk factor for morbidity and catching COVID. So I think that took place late last week. So
Yes.
We heard from the Floyd School District that decided, and it's an elected school board that decided to reject this unscientific mask mandate, listen to parents and empower parents and give parents the right to decide whether or not their children should be masked. And the governor came down very heavy-handedly to that school board and threatened them, which made national headlines earlier this week with removal and other disciplinary action for not enforcing this mask mandate. And just today, we heard that the New Mexico Public Education Secretary, who, by the way, it's a revolving door in this administration. I think this is he's an outgoing secretary. He leaves August 20th and mired in several alarming issues in of themselves. He wasn't even working here in New Mexico during much of the lockdown. He was working in Pennsylvania and is still leaving our school district. In the school districts across the state of New Mexico are the lowest performing in the country. So he is leaving in disgrace, but made the decision today to suspend all 5 of the duly elected school board members of the Floyd School District. And I think it's outrageous. I think people are upset, and it's a massive overreach on the part of our state government.
Well, I thought it was interesting that the board had actually placed, where's his name here? Terry was his name. They placed him on leave. And there was some debate about whether or not it was because he was in disagreement or not. But now he's in control of the entire board. I mean, I'm looking at this right now. And, you know, so they suspended the board, according to the release.
On a technicality.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure like what authority they have to even do that. Again, these are duly elected officials. So how exactly, by virtue of what statute or what authority are they able to remove elected officials?
Well, that's the situation we're in right now, either way. And it'll be interesting to see how they push back on that. I mean, when we talk about these masks and everything with kids, I know I was speaking to a friend of mine who's involved in some of the schools up here. And I know they had decided to go ahead and follow along with the mandates here in the Farmington area and elsewhere. They seem to be just, right along with it. And her encouragement was to have the kids go outside. But I mean, this whole thing is just stupid.
Well, again, I don't think there's a lot of scientific basis for the governor's decisions on a lot of these mandates. We knew last year that, for example, lockdowns were not working. They're doing more damage than they're doing more harm than good. With the school closures, end up doing more harm than good. There's a handful of children that actually died with or from COVID in New Mexico, whereas the suicide rates, because of the lockdowns, and we have a statistically higher suicide rate on average as it is, but that was compounded by children not being allowed to attend school in person. And so these are some of the things that we're not being able to talk about. We're not even allowed to talk about, that aren't being brought to the table. And yet we're still enforcing bad public policy that is impacting the lives and livelihood of New Mexicans across the state. And I think that people are starting to see the flaws in these decisions, and they're starting to rise up. In fact, there's another group that I'm supporting. It's called New Mexico Stand Up New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
They attended the Albuquerque school board meeting today and earlier this evening, and they effectively got the school board meeting shut down because so many people were upset about the enforcement of these policies, like the mask mandate.
Well, I think
I guess the question is, I mean, you've kind of answered the question I was about to ask. Like, what are people going to do about this, particularly in Floyd? I mean, what are these people? What recourse do they have when, from an extra constitutional standpoint, they basically had their elected officials removed and had basically stooges installed? I mean, what recourse is there? Have you heard of any litigation? Have you heard of them going to court? Obviously, they can't sue the soon-to-be former. Well, I mean, he steps down. You said on the 20th of August,
right? But I think ultimately the liability is with the state, since he's acting as an agent of the state of New Mexico.
Right.
So New Mexico stands up. I know that there are attorneys that are very busy with some active litigation in a lot of these areas, with the unscientific mandates, with mask mandates. And other issues related to that. So I'm sure that there is going to be a lawsuit forthcoming because no one seems to be answering that question. And you guys are the only media outlet thus far that I've seen that's even asking the question. I mean, where's our media? Where is the corporate media asking these important questions when they're reporting the news? I mean, it was reported as if this is the fact that the secretary was able to suspend duly elected officials. So it's an important
when
question.
It comes to the corporate media, they're probably getting paid a lot better than we are. So.
More definitely.
For me to say that I wouldn't lose all of my scruples or principles at the sound of a paycheck, which kind of dovetails into another issue here, which are these mandates. I mean, we're seeing it on a state level now. Obviously, there's private corporations that are moving forward and mandating it. which is absurd because the more this thing moves along, the vaccine just doesn't work. And we have an entire pile of statistics here we can go through. We have the time tonight, where we can prove that these vaccines are a joke, but they're moving forward to mandate that. I know that you had some different links, and I know Baca's got them floating around back there somewhere, where he can get them put up so that people can start to learn how to fight back against this legally.
Right. I think it's important that people understand their rights as we move forward. We saw just yesterday, my hair, I'm not having a good hair day.
We have no hair day.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it, man. No.
So just yesterday, Governor Cuomo, as well as Mayor de Blasio in New York City, called for the vaccine passport to be implemented in New York City. And that's already happening in Europe. So they have what's called the Green Pass in Europe, and a digital passport, on your phone that is monitoring your coming and going and whether or not you're vaccinated. The problem with that, as you mentioned, is it's Chad, right? Chad and
Shawn and
Thad.
Sorry. Right.
He can be a Chad sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
So as Shawn mentioned, the vaccines, so people that are vaccinated are also, and the CDC admitted this earlier this week, that people that are vaccinated can also transmit and contract COVID. So why do we need vaccine passports if that's the case?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. Obviously, Dr. Sharon Alroy-Prez, Israel's director of public health services, said that evidence pointed to the waning immunity in the COVID-19 vaccine. Which she said that it's 50% more infectious than the previous variant. Obviously, they're talking about Delta, but you move to Gibraltar, which is another place that is almost 99% vaccinated, and they're seeing their case rate rise by 2,500% per day. Then you move to Iceland, and this is another highly vaccinated country, and they're rising at the same rate. Singapore, they're seeing the same thing. Meanwhile, in Sweden, where the vaccination rate's at 39% and the government's not enforcing face masks or social distancing or any of that, they've been at zero COVID deaths for months.
Yeah, it's kind of fast. It's fascinating in a way, but also disturbing in a way to see. Well, first things first, the trial balloon was in the largest metropolitan area we have in the United States, to try or to at least attempt to implement this. When if you look at the vaccination rates in the city of New York, state of New York, but even the city of New York, which has a substantially well-sized minority population, the vaccination rates among those communities are extremely low. If you were to implement this fully, there are some negative historical, analogies there that you could have about, separate but unequal. I find, and I also find it that, the more rural areas of here in New Mexico have very low vaccination rates for lots of obvious reasons. It ain't just because they're a bunch of crazy anti-vaxxers. A lot of them don't live around people, or I don't know. We tend to ignore natural immunity. It's actually very silent from public pronunciations of the CDC. I don't know. I know you've been a kind of a big advocate, and of course you are from the reservation or a Native American part of the state and stuff like that. I mean, what's the feeling coming from the res about these mandates and how, if the uptick in these kind of what we call disenfranchised communities is low, that if you implement something like that, you are literally implementing, I'll say it, Jim Crow.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, Thaddeus, because the mayor of Boston, who is an African-American woman, just said today that vaccine passports are likened to slave papers. And it's interesting because there is a correlation there, because I believe only 28% of the Black community is vaccinated. And you're seeing similarly lower numbers with Hispanics. Now, Native Americans have seen higher COVID infection rates and mortality rates. But here's another thing that's not being discussed, is the fact that high blood sugar levels and diabetes, I believe 50% of the COVID deaths are from people that have diabetes.
So yeah, the comorbidities you were talking about earlier, or morbidities in
Right.
general. Yeah, that's ignored, as well as, well, what's the case? We're getting back into this thing where now we're doing dueling case counts, right? I'm more concerned with hospitalizations, and also, of those hospitalizations, don't we have the therapeutics now to treat people? We're not like cutting people's throats open immediately once they lose, 0.1% O2. So yeah, it's to me, it's not like it's not an emergency. It's just, it's not where we were this
Well,
time last year.
again, and if I want to encourage people to stay informed. I'm very vocal on these issues on my social media platforms, on Twitter. Today, I and again, we don't want to speak. We're not conspiracy theorists. Let's use the data. Let's use the science. The CDC's most recent data of the COVID-related deaths indicate that this is not, as the media, many on the left and the government are acting, that contracting COVID is a death sentence, and it's not unless you're in a high risk group or over the age of 65, and even then over the age of 85 is where you see a more exponential risk and morbidity rate. And so those are the vulnerable populations that we should be protecting. And they should look at getting the vaccine, and they should look at other preventative measures. And let's talk about those preventative measures. We're not even talking about the fact that there's also a very low rate of vitamin D levels in people that are contracting COVID. And why is the government and why is our governor not offering other solutions where people can protect themselves? The only solution that they're offering are lockdowns and mandates and vaccines. And
Well, and to be honest, I'm to the point where I would really encourage people to just have a COVID party. I mean, you're probably not going to die from it. Take some vitamin C, take some vitamin D, get some sunshine, and you'll probably be okay. I don't know if we're starting to escape that. I know that I was looking today at a paper, that was written by Gerd van der Bosch, a guy who's been right continuously about this thing, and it kind of scares me a little bit when I read what he has to say. But we have treated this thing completely wrong. Completely wrong. We were sold a bill of goods about what the mortality rate would be. We were lied to about that. And they just keep the lie of it. It's like it's a lie that's too big to fail. And I honestly don't know what to think of the governor at this point.
It's almost like they believe in the sunk. Yeah, they believe in the sunk cost. There's a sunk cost fallacy that they just have to they have to go all in. And to your point, Elisa, I mean, the people who are over the age of 65, the people who are in that 1% range of mortality have, at great numbers, taken at least one dose of the vaccination of the 3 that are available. So on the vulnerable populations, the people who know they were vulnerable, learned during this pandemic that they are quite vulnerable, are actually the people who have taken this, right? The people who we needed to protect most certainly. I guess, what is your thought as to why that this is being pushed further and further down the age and demographic strata? Like, why? What do you think is the end goal? You don't have to go conspiracy, but what do you think is the end goal?
I'm not sure. It appears that they are set on compliance and, for lack of a better word, marketing this as a death sentence for all age groups, and it's really not. And so there's all kinds of speculation out there. Obviously government is assuming control, and they want to continue this narrative. Some people believe in an attempt to force mail-in ballots again upon this upcoming election and 22 elections. But one of the challenges that we're facing, I think, overall, as we have the Democrats and the radical left in Washington have total control of our government, and total control of our government in the New Mexico government is they're assuming more power and control unto themselves, and they're using this COVID as a premise to do that. And so that's where it's important that people, they start working together, they band together, they start speaking up now, because it's very difficult once government assumes this type of power and control over our lives to wrangle it out of their hands. And I've been very outspoken, growing up in Gallup near the reservation, witnessing the devastating impact of these big government policies that dominate the reservation's economy. And also, I have a degree and background in economic policy. And so, having knowledge of how those types of systems work, they don't work, right? So the more power that you give government over your life, the more difficult it becomes to take away that power. Absolute power corrupts. So I think they've gotten a taste of it and they want more.
Yeah. It's like, that's fine. We can sit and talk about conspiracy theory and everything else, but I'm sorry. At this point, a lot of these things are conspiracy fact. And what we're seeing right now is a consolidation of power on the part of the Democratic Party, whether we want to think that they're working for more nefarious masters than what appears. Well, you don't have to go that far into the rabbit hole to figure something's wrong. But I do want to take it back when we talk about these vaccines and what they are doing right now. This is the first time in the history of the world that we've ever conducted a mass vaccination campaign against a novel coronavirus. Now, that has serious implications when you start to look at what that means. It's a highly mutable virus. And when you use an mRNA vaccine that barely produces antibodies that attack the spike protein on the outside of the coronavirus, but really do nothing to give real immunity, it's a setup for a disaster is what it is. Because I need people to understand that what we're seeing in live time, we like to talk about gain of function and whether or not Fauci did or didn't or whatever, it really doesn't matter, because in real time right now, with the vaccine interacting with a highly mutable coronavirus, we are watching gain of function testing.
You're seeing it in real time. Yeah. It's funny that I remember in the early days of kind of people who were talking about developing this mRNA technique for going after this one area of the virus. And I remember there was 1 or 2 people who said, who were asking the downside of this, and they're just like, well, the spike protein as a target, we're going after something that's highly mutable, right? Like it'll mutate, but we think we could, because of this new technique, because that's all mRNA really is. It's just a new technique at inoculation.
That's never.
We could change it. We could reprogram it. We think we're masters of the universe. And so, yeah, it mutated as it is apt to do. And no one paid attention to the other conserves of the virus, i.e. the more immutable parts of the virus, because this was easier to do. And one does not have to be a conspiracy theorist to be like, it's very cynical of me to think that maybe they were just too lazy. And that we had scared the world so much, we had locked down the world so much, and there was so much pressure just to get this done so we could get back to normal. But here's what's happening. We're not going back to normal. So I think from a scientific standpoint, we took the easy way out. When there were monoclonal antibody things in the pipeline that we've seemed to just kind of stop focusing on, that we never really got beyond, I'm going to botch the name, Remdesivir. I always screw it up. We tend to just stick with that and some other therapeutics that are less than effective, but like we kind of we're not reconstituting other drugs. I'm on the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin train for treatment. It seems, why not encourage those from a state level? Right. If we have this new Delta variant, we've had people on that have had people who work in the ER and stuff like that. This is just a clotting. This virus causes clotting. So we have things to deal with that. Why aren't we doing more of this? And why are we preventing doctors from off-label use of maybe other methods? It really kind of frightens me. Right. And it makes myself as an African American even less I'm already, I have 2 strikes against me. I'm African American and I'm a man, so I don't like going to the doctor. Right? So
I
it's
don't
kind of
like
one of those things
doctor
where just
either.
so I always kind of turn my head sideways and stuff like, I don't know, do I really need to go and stuff
I'm
like
fine
that.
with going to the doctor. I've just gone a lot less ever since I lost my health insurance and I was still waiting for the Obamacare to kick in. But
Oh yeah. No, that's one of those things, right? Obamacare was supposed to take care of us all, right? It's kind of what we've noticed here in the state, right? There's just a lot of people that are really, really dependent on the government. A lot of people who work for the government who are tangential to the government, and so now the government's mandating that you got to take this shot, and now there's some apprehension.
Yes. Well, and I think that's the next step. So we saw today where now the military, the U.S. military, I believe they are enforcing now a vaccine mandate for our military personnel. And for people like Thaddeus, like myself, and I'm not sure where you stand, Shawn, but people that are concerned, I don't like to take aspirin. I don't like to take any foreign substance into my body. And this is not like a polio vaccine or other vaccines that have taken sometimes a decade or more to develop. We don't know what the side effects, the long-term effects and side effects will be.
I disagree. I think we know exactly what the side effects are. I've read the study from the
We don't know what
university.
the long-term effects will be.
Oh, well,
We're in the middle of the experiment.
I wouldn't expect long term to go very well. They already researched this under the direction of Dr. Fauci at the University of Texas in 2010. It killed all of the animals involved in the study within 3 months.
Wow.
So yeah,
we deserve to know that. That's the first I've heard of that. So
yeah, and that's kind of that's the part about this that is disturbing. People who are on, in my opinion, the right side of this, the choice side of this, right?
I don't like being on this side of this.
I don't like being on this side of this because me, man, I'm a geek, bro. I love like science. I love the science, right? But like you can't, even if the future of inoculation and we work out the kinks for mRNA for other types of therapeutics, that's essentially what this vaccine is now. It's just a therapeutic. The truth be told, we need to know all the warts. We need to know the good, the bad, the ugly, warts and all, so that not only we can, not take this if there are long-term health effects, but fix it. Because I'm a systems guy. It's like, well, all right, well, that's bad. We need to reiterate and figure out why it's bad. Fix it.
Right. And also, I mean, I think the tradition in medicine and the tradition that is acknowledged by the Nuremberg Code is this concept of informed consent. So my understanding is that you're not getting a full informed consent because we don't know the long-term implications, but also the liability that is being waived in order to sue.
Oh yeah, they're indemnified. Yeah.
For any of the side effects that may result, and we know that that is happening and has happened to a number, hundreds of people across the country, if not more, obviously. But why is the liability being waived, and where is an actual informed consent and knowledge of the implications for any adverse effects?
And where's the iteration coming from these guys, right? I mean, why? I mean, are they waiting until the VARS database is filled to the gills before they go, all right, let's study this and reiterate, or let's figure out, let's make it very, very open what some of these side effects, at least short term, are, so we can actually treat them before things get bad. I mean, how many people are just being silent because they don't want to be thought of as an anti-vaxxer, even if they've taken the vaccine and they're dealing with some weird adverse effect? And we don't know that. We don't have that data. And we live in a world that is governed by data. The algorithm that will kick us off of YouTube and probably Facebook requires data for the algorithm to run. But in order for that to happen, it needs the data. We don't have the data. Now that we have the largest human trial, the largest phase 3 trial in human history going on, to me as the engineer, it's just like, let's figure out what's wrong and let's fix what's wrong. Or if it's unredeemable, right? It's like something that is like, all right, we should probably pull it. Let's pull it.
Well, the reason why we can't have those discussions, I think, by and large, is due to the fact that this issue has been politicized to the gills, and now people are like, they don't want to not wear a mask because they feel that they'll be identified as a Republican, and goodness forbid you are identified as a Republican.
Well, I struggled with that a lot. At least I got to be honest.
Well, that's the That's why I'm here today, because well, one of the other reasons is that we launched this new group, the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, and so that's something that I guess we're going to talk about eventually. But back to your point, I think it's just been so politicized that people are afraid to voice their opinions, and they're just in these two camps. And we're not looking at the science, we're not looking at the facts, we're not even able to have a discussion about it. And I'm of the opinion, if you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, I respect that as well. And if the vaccine works the way it's supposed to, then you shouldn't have to worry about the status of another person. And I don't see that there is any evidence to date that would indicate that the non-vaccinated are the ones responsible for the Delta variant. I think ultimately the Chinese Communist Party is responsible for all of this, and this is who we should be blaming more so than our fellow Americans.
Well, you got to get to Fauci first for that to make sense too.
Yeah,
but
true.
No, we are over on time anyways, so let's just talk about what you do with the National Hispanic Assembly, and just lay it out there for everybody so that they can contact you and anything else.
Well, great. So I am the there goes my bad. Here we go. The vice chair of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly of New Mexico, and this is a new group that we relaunched. It's been around for about 30 years, but not active here in New Mexico until recently. So we relaunched this organization about a month ago, and we've had some tremendous response from folks across New Mexico. And for the record, this isn't a matter of identity politics. When New Mexico is a Hispanic majority state, it's a minority majority state. And like I'm sure both of you, Shawn and Thaddeus, sometimes I hear this all the time. People don't feel welcome in the Republican Party. They don't feel welcome, like they can identify with the Republican Party at times. And we know that sometimes that label of being the party of old white rich man is something that the party here, needs new flag bearers and needs new representation. So we're excited to launch this group and outreach the Hispanic community and beyond. You don't have to be Hispanic to join. The website is rnhanm.org. And just recently, the national organization partnered with CPAC for as the official Hispanic outreach organization of CPAC. And so we're really excited about that. Lastly, I would say in regard to this organization that you're seeing a lot of movement amongst Hispanics and actually African Americans toward President Trump in this last election. In McAllen, Texas, we saw a Republican Hispanic flip that district, which was like 85% Democrat. So these policies are starting to hit home. They're starting to hit people's pocketbooks with the rising gas prices, which correlate to what took place on January 20th when Biden was inaugurated. So I think folks are starting to wake up, and we're excited to launch this organization and start reaching new faces and really being an open tent for conservative values, traditional values here in New Mexico.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. We've had Audrey Trujillo on as well, and I don't know what capacity she is, but I know she's talked about your guys' work. I mean, it's very, very important, particularly here in the Southwest, that the Republican Party, for lack of a better word, brown a little bit and show a little bit of diversity out here, because, yeah, there are a lot of natives, or a lot of Hispanics, a lot of old school Spaniard types that are conservative culturally, and sometimes even economically. And then I saw your interview on Fox News a couple years ago where you basically kind of laid out the fact that, like, hey, socialism doesn't work, right? These policies don't work. If you don't believe us, come out to the Southwest and go on to a reservation. I tell my friends this all the time when they want to talk that jazz. So Again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for bringing this stuff to our attention, and continued success with the outreach, particularly for the Hispanics here, and maybe the GOP here in New Mexico can learn a little something.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It's been a wonderful time, and it goes by so fast. So thank you again, and I'm happy to come on again as your schedule permits. But keep up.
I know we've actually gotten booked a lot, and we'll get Bach on here to tell us what we're doing next. That's basically what we do all the time. What are we doing? But we really do appreciate you coming on. And
Thank you very much.
Short notice, and people have got to start paying attention to these facts that are out there, and you're doing a great job in helping to get that out there. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Take care. Keep up the great work.
We'll try. Aka, what are we doing?
Gentlemen, everyone, ladies, good evening. What are we doing? We are preparing for Sunday's show with Rebecca Dow, who's running for governor. We will be at 1 p.m. going live again, and hopefully just keeping these things coming out, right? I got stressed. I'm the biggest fan of this show. So if it seems like somebody's lost back there, not pushing buttons, it's me. Usually just kind of really feeling what's going on with the guests and the hosts and trying to understand what's happening around us, because I don't think I'm getting it anywhere else. But now I've plugged us. Does anybody have anything else to plug before I hit the buttons I'm supposed to hit?
No, I think we're pretty good.
See you Sunday.
Appreciate everybody. Likes, shares, subscribes. See you Sunday.
And the podcast will be up soon.
Yeah. All right.
Good night.